Everyone, it's Jenny here and I'm joining you for a video with a card that I've created for Butterfly Reflections Ink. I'm on the design team and I'm showcasing today one of the stamps from the recent collection by WPLUS9, which is their Christmas Rose Bouquet stamp. And I have watercoloured this stamp for my card today, and I wanted to show you the process I followed. So today I'm using hot press watercolour paper. The actual paper I used is Fabriano's Aquarello watercolour hot press, and it's in the extra white. So it's nice to get the crisp white colour when we're making cards. I don't always like to use the usual kind of off-white colour. And also I'm using hot press today because it's far easier to stamp on. It's much smoother, so you get much more of a crisp image. I did use my MISTI to stamp it, and if you're stamping on cold press or even rough, I highly recommend using a MISTI in order to get a full, crisp, clean image. But I did use my MISTI today for the hot press, and that was predominantly because the image is very large and I wanted to make sure that I got full coverage because I've heat embossed it. So I stamped the image in Versamark Ink using my MISTI, which is a clear sticky ink, and then heat embossed using rose gold embossing powder. And I taped down the piece of paper to my board, and I used Sakura Koi watercolours, but they were literally just the ones I first reached for in my little craft cart. There wasn't any particular reason why I chose them, but they're a really good little palette to get hold of if you can. And I just spent a couple of hours painting. So I'm using clean clear water, and I'm painting each part with just the clean clear water first, and then dropping in the paint. So you can see in the video, I really do wish I could paint this quickly in real life. But I basically paint with clear water, drop it in, let it wick out, move to a different area, drop in the paint, let it wick out. Occasionally, because I'm using hot press, doesn't seem to always wick out as much as it would on cold press. Maybe that's just me. So sometimes I might have to encourage it a little bit. So the poinsettia, which is the flower in the middle, I actually used two different shades of red. So you can see them in the top row there in the palette. So I dropped in the slightly lighter shade first, and then as that was wicking out, I then dropped in the next shade. So there was a little bit more difference in the petals. It wasn't just a flat colour. For the hellebore, which are the purple ones, I'm using a purple colour, letting that wick out. I didn't use any other colour, but I did drop in a slightly darker shade over top. And then for the leaves, I used a sap green, and then went straight in with a darker green and let that wick out. It gives some contrast, it gives a bit of variation in the colouring, and you can just leave it there. I actually decided to do 2 or 3 layers when I was doing the painting to add more shading, to add a bit more contrast, but also just to stay in my craft room for another hour or so and not have to emerge into the real world. So it's quite nice to have a play. It doesn't happen very often. And I did let it dry naturally in between each layer. But on hot press particularly, hot press doesn't seem to want to take as much water. I definitely recommend using a brush that's not as wet as you would typically use for cold press paper. Maybe just me, but it doesn't enjoy having lots of water put on it. It'll just sit on the surface more. And I did go in a little heavy-handed on the water in some instances. But this Fabriano paper is very high quality, really good paper. Took whatever I could throw at it. So as I say, I let it dry in between each layer naturally. And then when I went in to add the subsequent layers, I did not use anything other than a wet brush with the paint on it. I didn't add water onto the petal first or anything like that. If you do that, that will often create sort of blooms, which might be the look you're going for, but you know, just the harsh edges. I wasn't going for that look. I was looking to create a bit more contrast, bit of shading, give a bit more dimension. So I'm going to carry on painting. I will join you back here shortly after I've completed it. Okay, so I'm also using this paper pad to create the background for my card. It's by Kaisercraft and it's called Wildflower, 6x6. Butterfly Reflections Ink carries it. And I got it because I love the watercolor images that were in there, and I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised, to find that within the paper pad there's die cuts. They're already pre-cut for you at the back. And then there's also a number of different patterns that have that sort of resist, shiny resist to them, which is fab. Great for distress ink blending and that sort of thing. So I'm trimming down one of the papers. I went for one that was relatively plain, had the look of marble, and I'm just trimming it to the size of a standard A2 card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I'm adhering it with glue runner to the card base, which is Nina Solar White 110 card stock. And I'm actually using my MISTI to line up the paper with the card base, which is a little trick I learned from Kathy Zilke over on her channel. Very, very smart, because I have a nightmare trying to line up my card bases. And I've die cut a frame border die here. It's actually by My Favourite Things, but Fawn does a very similar die which Butterfly Reflections Ink carries. And I've die cut it from sturdy white cardstock. It's the same Nina Solar White, 110 pound. And I'm smushing my Versamark ink pad all over it because I'm going to heat emboss it. So I'm using the same rose gold embossing powder that I used to heat emboss the stamped image in the first place. And then I basically poured it all over the border, heated it with my heat gun, and I did it again so I got more of a metal type look on the frame. And I'm using these thin foam tape strips, I think they're by Doris, to pop up the frame, which I'm then going to adhere down to the card base. If I can get it lined up. What I've done is I've cut out the image using my handy scan and cut because I'm not very good at fussy cutting, and I'm going to pop it up on foam squares so that it's slightly overlapping the frame that's already adhered down at the edges and then popped up in the middle. Now for my sentiment, I'm going to be using a set by Hero Arts. It's the Offbeat Christmas Messages, I think it's called. It just recently came out and the messages in there are absolutely hilarious. I'm being very boring and using just the one that says Merry Christmas, which I've inked up with Versamark Ink, stamped it, and I'm heat embossing it in the same matching rose gold embossing powder on a scrap of black cardstock. Heat embossed it, and then I'm going to pop it up onto foam tape. And I did mess around for quite a while with the placement of the sentiment, because obviously that's very important. I cut all of that out of the video. Didn't think you really want to watch me doing that. And then for finishing touch, I've added some pretty pink Posh sequins in sparkling clear in the 6mm and the 4mm sizes, which I adhered down with Ranger Multimedia Matte Adhesive. As a finishing touch, and I didn't get this on camera, I added Ranger Enamel accents in black into the centre of the poinsettia and some Nuvo drops in butterscotch into the centre of the hellebores. And you can see that in the picture. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Would love it if you gave me a thumbs up or left me a comment. And also, if you enjoyed this, I am hoping to do more videos in the near future. So if you subscribe to my channel, you'll get a heads up as soon as a new video is available. That's it from me. Thanks very much for watching. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you again soon.